Hello everybody and welcome back to part 2 of our exploration of the historic mines surrounding the Cleator area. The last video we featured on our channel was our ride out to the DeSoto Mine. We rode the moderately difficult trail from Bumblebee and made it up to the mine. At DeSoto we stopped at 3 parts of the old mine, including the old tramway station, the lower levels and the main haulage tunnel of the mine, and finally the upper workings of the mine. The DeSoto was a very productive mine, high up on the peaks of the Bradshaws, turning out about 180,000 tons of ore and about $3.2 million during its lifetime from 1895 to the 1960s. The ore at the DeSoto was hauled to the Bradshaw Mountain Railroad at the Middleton siding before hauled the rest of the way to the smelter in Humboldt. Today we are continuing the exploration, but this time we will be branching off and heading north from Cleator about 5 miles to the Bluebell Mine and quarry. The Bluebell and the DeSoto share numerous similarities. Both were primarily copper mines, both were prospected and discovered around the same time in the late 1800s, and both had aerial tramways. We'll be heading up to the Bluebell to see what remains we can find. The path to Bluebell begins in the small town of Cleator. From Main Street, head north on the only road out of town. It's a forest road. The trail then passes through a tight road cut and continues north. Note the signs that say the road is closed 5 miles ahead at the Bluebell Mine. The following miles of trail follow much of the old Bradshaw Mountain Railroad. This is evident in the numerous road cuts and how the roadbed itself is built up to be mostly flat and straight. As we continued north, we found that the road continued to degrade in quality. Eventually, it became a narrow and rough 4-wheel drive trail. High clearance and 4-wheel drive are required after about 3 to 4 miles. Stock vehicles will likely not make the whole trail without damage. After about 5 miles, the road levels out and drops into the Bluebell remains. The large tailings and leaching pile is a little overwhelming at first. The surface footprint of the Bluebell is really quite impressive. The history of the Bluebell dates back to the 1870s. Much like the nearby DeSoto Mine, this area was first prospected during that time. It wasn't until about 1895 when the mine began producing. Initial ore was assayed at about 15% copper, which was quite high for the area. Primary workings at the time remained shallow and the main shafts were only sunk to about 200 feet deep. By 1902, additional veins had been discovered and additional shafts were sunk. The mine was acquired by the owners of the DeSoto Mine, who also operated the smelter over in Humboldt. The arrival of the railroad brought a more economical way to get ore to the smelter. The railroad passed nearby but was still over 3 miles away. So, they built a 3-mile tramway to connect the mine to the Bluebell siding of the railroad. We found no evidence of the tramway at the mine, although we really didn't explore the uppermost levels. The mine continued to churn out high-quality ore from 1905 to 1913. Workings continued down to the 1,000-foot level. The onset of World War I saw an increase in demand for copper and saw the most successful years of the mine. From 1917 to 1918 alone, the mine produced nearly 275,000 tons of ore. During the war, copper was so valuable that lower quality ore was considered acceptable for mining. During this time, ore of about 2.5% copper was considered valuable and economically feasible. Following the war, the mine sat idle in 1921 and 22. The company that owned the mine reorganized and work continued in the later part of 1922. The need for high-grade ore forced miners to work down to the 1,500-foot level by 1925. In the lower levels of the mine, standing water became a problem. 150,000 gallons needed to be pumped out daily to keep the mine operational. In 1927, following the closure of the Humboldt smelter, all work and pumping at the mine was stopped. The mine was reworked during World War II and into the 1970s and 80s, eventually becoming a stone quarry, but the Bluebell was never as successful as it was in the early 1900s. The success of the Bluebell can largely be attributed to timing. Much of the high-grade ore was found in the early years of the mine, which is pretty typical, but the onset of World War I brought on a second wave of success. Underground workings totaled about 30,000 feet at the mine, and in its total lifetime, the mine produced about 1.2 million tons, valued at approximately $14 million. Remains left today at the Bluebell are minimal to moderate, depending on what you consider remnants. The Bluebell is certainly an interesting stop and provides plenty to the curious traveler who hops out to explore. Consider combining the Bluebell with a trip to DeSoto Mine or any of the other numerous great trails around Crown King. Remember, 4-wheel drive and high clearance are required for the 5-mile trip one way from Cleator. Thanks for watching this video and our DeSoto Mine video, and be sure to check out the links in the description for more photos and history on each of these locations. And you can also find directions on how to access the mines. Thanks for watching this exploration video, and we'll see you next time.